super excited to get started on my very first design team project for Country Craft Creations, and I'm going to be using the Simple Stories Simple Vintage Traveler Collection that you can pick up at the countrycraftcreations.com store. So today we're going to be working on the cover of our album, but what you will need for the whole album is definitely the Simple Vintage Traveler Collection, and I will link my design team box below this video so that you can go check it out and see everything that I'm going to be using. But kind of a simple overview is the chipboard frames, and then the chipboard stickers, and obviously the Simple Vintage Traveler Collection, and the journaling cards, and these really beautiful Prima flowers. And you're going to need the medium weight chipboard, which is under here. You can't really see it right now. And then also, besides that, you're going to need some 110-pound black cardstock. You're going to need some 65-pound weight craft cardstock in 8.5 by 11 and 3 sheets of it in 12 by 12. You're also going to need some 1/4-inch tape, and you're going to need the 3/8 of an inch score tape, which is this one right here. You're going to need a pencil and a ruler, some scissors, a larger pair of scissors as well for when we cut our cover, the cardstock for the cover. And you're going to need some wet glue. I'm going to use Fabri-Tac for some of it, and for some of it I'm going to use my art glitter glue for some of my matting. So that's basically it. If I didn't say a scoreboard, you definitely need a scoreboard and a cutter, but I will be pre-cutting most of my stuff and then just giving you guys the sizes. So we're going to start with building our cover. So what you're going to need to build the cover, you're going to need some magnets. I have 2 sizes here. I have the smaller size, and I have the larger size of the basic gray magnets, which you can also pick up at the Country Craft Creations store. You're going to need a scissor. You're going to need your Fabri-Tac glue or any kind of a wet glue that you like to use. This is probably one of my favorites for covers. You're going to need your 1/4-inch tape and your 1/2-inch tape, or sorry, 1/4-inch and 3/8 of an inch tape. And you're going to need 5 pieces of chipboard. You're going to need 2 pieces that measure 8 by 5. So 2 pieces that measure 8 by 5. You're going to need 2 pieces that measure 8 by 3.5. And you're going to need 1 piece that measures 10 by 8. And you're going to need 3 pieces of cardstock that measure 12 by 10. So I cut them all down to 10. So I have 3 that measure 12 wide by 10 long, up and down. You're going to need 2 pieces of pattern paper. I picked these 2 from the collection, so they're going to be really awesome for my cover, and those will come a little bit later. You're going to need 2 pieces of the 110-pound weight black cardstock that measure 9 7/8 wide by 7.5 tall. And you're going to need to score those at 1/2 inch on the 7.5-inch side, at 1/2 inch, and then again at 3 7/8. So 1/2 inch and 3 7/8. And you're going to need 2 of those. And I'm going to show you how to do the cutting later that we're going to need to do for these. For our closure at the front, you're going to need a piece of lightweight chipboard. And that measures, piece of lightweight chipboard that measures 6.5 by 4 1/4. And you're gonna need a piece of 65-pound black cardstock that measures 7.5 by 5 1/4. And you're gonna need a piece that measures 6 1/4 by 4 1/8. And also you're gonna need a piece of acetate right here that measures 6 1/4 by 4. So 6 1/4 by 4. I don't know if you can even really see it, but it is there. And then I'm using one of the chipboard frames. It's gonna go over the top like this, and this is gonna be part of our closure mechanism, but that'll come after we build our cover. So let's get started with building the cover first. So I have 3 pieces of the 10 by 12 craft cardstock here. And I've already attached a piece of 1/4 inch tape to 2 of my sides. So I'm going to go ahead and remove it from one of the 12-inch wide sides here. And I'm just going to attach them together just like that. And then I'll do the same thing over here. So remove that and then attach this one there as well. So next I'm going to do the centerpiece first. So I'm going to add my center sheet of chipboard first because I want to, when I line these up here, my spine pieces, I want to make sure that none of my pieces are right on the joins that we created for our papers. So that's why I'm going to put the center one on first and then put these ones on, and we are going to have to trim some cardstock off of both sides, but that's okay because I'd rather get these centers done nicely first. So I'm going to go ahead with my Fabri-Tac glue, and I'm going to glue on my largest piece of chipboard first. So this is the piece that measures 10 by 8. So just try to get that glue all over the back of it. And then we'll just move these aside and we will just center this onto the piece of 10 by 12 craft cardstock. Just like that. And just give it a little press down, nothing too crazy. And then next we're going to put on our pieces that measure 8 by 3.5, and these are going to be the width of our spine. So they have to come next. This is a very large album. Actually, it's I'm pretty sure it's the largest one I've ever done. So I'm going to try really hard to always keep it in frame. So I'm leaving about 1/8 of an inch between my pieces of chipboard here. Right in here I'm leaving about 1/8 of an inch just so our paper has somewhere to go and our album is flexible. You don't want a super tight album because you want to be able, it has to be usable. That's the most important part. And that's why we always need that separation there. Alright, so we're just adding glue to our next side here, and this again is the piece that measures 8 by 3.5. Alright, and that's just going to go right there. Again, we're leaving 1/8 of an inch of a space between the two. Perfect. And now we will put on one of our 8 by 5 inch pieces. I'm really running low on my Fabri-Tac here. Have to head to Michael's today and pick some up. Just all over the back of that. And then again, put it on, leaving that nice 1/8 of an inch space. All right, and then we'll do our final one over here. Just like so. And this one again measures 8 by 5. And again, you leave that nice 1/8 of an inch border there. So now we can just go flip the whole thing over, and we can get our bone folder and just burnish it all down. Make sure we get contact on all of that glue. All right, now we can flip it back over. And now I'm just gonna trim off, leaving about an inch there on the sides. It doesn't have to be exact, just as long as you leave yourself enough to wrap your album, that will be sufficient. All right, so now let's go ahead and fold in all of our sides here. All right, so now I've folded in and burnished all my sides. So now we're gonna grab our scissor and we're going to cut. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut up here just to where, if you'll see here, just to where these two lines meet that we've created by folding in. And then I'm going to cut over, and then I'm going to take out a little bit, just again to where those score lines meet, just like so. So that's how my corners are going to look, and I'm going to do that on all 4 sides. Okay, so I've done that on all 4 sides. I've cut out those corners. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my 3/8 score tape, and I'm going to run it all the way along all 4 of my sides and then along the top of all 4 of my edges. All right, so now we're just going to burnish down all of our tape with the bone folder, just like so, all the way around. Make sure it's got nice adhesion. So now we're going to start with our long sides. So we're going to need to remove the backing from 2 short sides and 1 long side. And then one of our long sides over here. And we're just going to go ahead and start in the middle, press down from the middle, and just work your way out. And we have already pre-folded, but you still don't really want it to drop down where you don't want it. So we've got that. I'm just gonna burnish that down, and then I'm gonna flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. So remove the one long side and then the other long side. And again, start in the middle and just work your way out. And if I can give you one piece of advice, it is take your time, because you've already invested this much time into this. Take your time and make sure you get it all the way you want it before you press down on anything. All right, now let's do our 2 short sides, and I'm just gonna take my nail, and on these edges here, I'm just gonna bring it in a little bit like this, just with my nail. You can use your bone folder too if you like. And again, I'm gonna start in the middle and then press outward. All right, and then we'll do our last side here. So start in the middle and press outward. Perfect. And I'm just going to burnish that down. And so now I'm just going to take just the flat edge of my bone folder and just make gentle little, just break those fibers just a tiny bit there before we try and fold it. So we're just going to bring it up and then bring this side up. And then we'll go over here, bring it up, and bring this side up. And now when we bring it together, they come together perfectly in the middle, right there. So we have just created the basic structure for our album. Really, really nice. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add our 2 flaps that are gonna come in from the top and from the bottom. And these are gonna be what gives us the look that this is an album that's inside of a box versus just being able to see the album when you look in from the top. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create our shape for our pieces before we add them in. So I'm just gonna set my album to the side here. So what you're gonna need for that is you're gonna need a ruler and a scissor and a pencil. So we have our piece here that measures 9 7/8 wide by 7.5 inches tall. And we have scored it at 1/2 inch and then at 3 7/8 on the 7.5 inch side. So now we've got this. So next what we're gonna do is you're going to take your ruler and your pencil, and you're going to mark in 1 inch from both sides. So you're gonna mark in 1 inch here and then move over and mark in an inch on this side. And then all we're gonna do is we'll take our scissors, and you can do this with a paper trimmer as well, it's gonna work either way. And we're gonna cut from this line up to this corner here, to our first score line, on a diagonal. This step is purely aesthetic. So if you don't want to do this step, you do not have to. On this side, I'm going to cut down from the top just to my score line here. So then that's what gives me my shape for this one. And then I've already done it for our second one. So you're going to need to do that twice. And remember, these pieces are 110-pound black cardstock. So we're going to bring our album back in. And if you, I guess it doesn't matter at this point, but if you do have a preference for what you want to be the top or bottom of your album, you can go ahead and figure that out now. So I've added the 3/8 of an inch score tape on my 1/2 inch flap, and I'm going to bend that down. And I'm just going to remove a little bit of my score tape, and I'm going to try to center it on this piece of chipboard, because this piece is 1/8 of an inch smaller than the width of my chipboard. So I'm going to do my best to center it on there. Alright, that's where I want it, so now I'm just going to take off the rest of my backing and press it down. So now, when our album is closed, and it's got all its little pieces in it, it's going to look like that from the top. And I think that's really cool. Alright, so now let's do the bottom. I'm just going to flip it over, and I'm going to attach it the exact same way that I attached this top piece. Alright, so now both of my top and bottom pieces are attached for the inside of my album. See, that is how it's going to look. Ooh, I really like it. Alright, so now let's work on the closure for our album. So while we're doing that, I'm just going to fold these in here, just so that they're not in the way of that. And I'm going to grab 2 clips. So I've just got some little alligator clips here. And I'm going to clip my album closed exactly the way that I want it. So we can put these on here like so. And now I'm going to set it aside. Okay, let's work on the closure now. So the first thing we need to do is we need to wrap this piece of light chipboard in our 65-pound black cardstock. So I'm just going to use my art glitter glue here, and I'm going to put it all over the back of my chipboard piece here. And remember, this piece of chipboard measures 4 1/4 by 6 1/2, and our black cardstock measures 7 1/2 by 5 1/4. So it's a 1/2 inch larger on all 4 sides. So I'm just going to flip that over and give it a good burnish. And now we're just going to bring in our sides here. right, and for this, I'm just gonna go ahead and trim, just cut them off right at the edge there, right across that square we created by folding it. All right, and now we will just fold in all our pieces and add the tape. So I've got the 3/8 of an inch tape here. And we're just gonna add the tape all the way around the 4 sides, just on the black flaps this time. All right, so we'll do our long sides first. So make sure you get them really nice and tight in. Just like so. Now we'll do our short sides. All right. So now we'll just take, again, our art glitter glue and put it all over the back of this black piece here. That's going to cover up the back. And remember, this piece measures 6 1/4 by 4 1/8. So the next step is now to attach this frame right onto there, and it should fit perfectly. But first we're going to attach our acetate to the back of this, and then we'll attach it all onto here. So I've already added the 1/4 inch tape all across the back on all 4 sides. So just remove the backings, and then we'll just lay this nice and flat, and we'll grab our acetate piece and make sure you center it on there nicely, and be careful because you do only get one shot at this. So now I'm going to add the 1/4 inch tape around 3 sides, so not along the top, just 2 short sides and 1 long side. Because if you did it across the top too, of course you would end up closing up your pocket, and that's not what we want. So then just remove the backings from all of these. And then we will just add it right to the top of this. And make sure you get it nice and even all the way around. And then you can press it down onto it. All right, and then we'll be able to slide something in there for the front of our book, which is really cool. All right, so how the closure is gonna work for the album is we're going to add magnets to all 4 corners back here, and we're gonna start with 4 corners and see how well that holds, and then I might add 1 more on each side. We'll see how well the 4 corners hold it. So I've got my basic gray magnets here. start with 4 sets and see how well it holds, and if I think that it needs more, we'll go ahead and add 1 more in the middle. So I'm going to try to put them a little bit in so that they're easier to cover, because if you put them too close to the edge, they're kind of hard to cover up afterwards. So about 3/4 of an inch in on both sides should work just fine. So just like this. And then we'll go ahead and remove the backings. All right, so we've removed the backings. So now you're going to place it on where you want it. Try to center it as best as you can. And as I'm pressing it on, I'm kind of, with my hands underneath, pressing down the album. All right, so that looks pretty good to me right there. So you can go ahead and reach underneath and press down on your magnets like so, and then we'll remove these, and there we go. So there is our closure for our album, and it just snaps right on and keeps it closed. Yeah, so I think 4 is more than enough. It works really well. Yeah. All right, fantastic. So now let's get our papers cut to cover the album and the underneath of this. Okay, so I've gone ahead and covered the album with the pattern paper, and I'm just going to give you the measurements really quick. So for the front here, for these 2 panels, both of these pieces measure 4 3/4 by 7 3/4. So both of these pieces measure that. The sides measure 3 1/4 by 7 3/4. So both sides measure that, and then the back cover is 9 3/4 by 7 3/4. And then these pieces up here measure 3 1/8 by 9 5/8. So 3 1/8 by 9 5/8. And then for the front here, I just tucked in one of the little journaling cards into the pocket in the front, and then that's it. That finishes up the cover. Okay guys, let's get to covering our spine sections on the inside here of the book. So I've already done this side here, and they're going to be exactly the same. So this piece measures 7 3/4 long by 5 inches wide, and it's just a piece of matching craft cardstock. I've added the score tape all along here, so I've done the entire inside of the spine and on both sides of the outside of the spine with the score tape. And I've also lined the back of my craft cardstock with the score tape as well on these pieces. And then we're just going to add it on top. Just be extra careful when you're putting it down that you're getting enough on both sides of the spine. So that looks pretty good to me there. So we're going to go ahead and burnish that down with our bone folder. just like so. Make sure it's all really nice and burnished. And then you're gonna find where your spine pieces bend here. And you're just gonna kind of press in while you bring it up, if that makes sense. Just like this. So that's the first one, and then we've got the second one here. You can just find it and go all the way down, but be gentle because you don't want it to break or bend. There we go. All right, and we have no bubbles. So let's get started on our pages. So for the pages, we're actually going to have our pages come in from both sides. There's going to be 4 pages on this side of the spine, and then 4 pages on this spine here. So we're actually going to have our pages come in from both sides. There's going to be 4 on this spine here and 3 on this spine here. And we're going to need to do some measuring before we can add our pages. So on this side, our 1/2 inch gusset is going to be starting here, and it's going to come up right against this line here. And on this side here, our 1/2 inch gusset is actually going to start 1 inch from the edge here. And the reason that is so that the pieces can fold together and for there to be room for everything. And it'll make more sense once the pages are on. So starting on this side here, because this side we can just go ahead and lay our pages down like we normally would. So our pages are also going to be like they're not going to be the same size. They're going to come down 1/2 inch with every page. So right now you're seeing 1 inch on this side and 1 inch on this side. But once they come together, it's done in a way where they're going to come down 1/2 inch every time, all the way down. So they're going to all be a different size. So we're going to start with the piece that measures 10 1/4 by 7 3/4. So it's 10 1/4 this way by 7 3/4 tall. And you are going to score each page the same way. That's not going to change. The only thing that's going to change is the height. So you're going to score it at 1/2 inch, and then you're going to score it at 1 1/4. So 1/2 inch and 1 1/4, which is going to give us 3 inch piece, a 3 inch space there. And that space is so that when our pages go back and lay on top of each other, it extends the hinge slightly so that our pages can lay flat. So this is called, at least I call it, the lay flat binding system. So we're going to start by adding this page right along here. And we're not going to bring it up all the way to our score line. We're going to leave about 1/8 of an inch, maybe 1/16 of an inch, just as long as it's not touching where our 2 pieces of chipboard under there meet. So you can go ahead and just remove a little bit of the backing of your tape, and we can line it up down here and up there, and it should be the exact same size as the piece that we covered our binding with. All right, so we'll just be extra careful here to make sure we don't go over that, and then we're going to take out that piece. And then we're going to bring it in, make sure it's fairly nice and straight. And there's our first page attached. So now we're going to go to the other side, and we're going to attach our next page. But the first thing we need to do to attach the next page is we need to measure in 1 inch from this line here, from where our 2 pieces of chipboard under there meet, So we're going to measure in an inch, and then we're going to do the same thing on the bottom, just because we need to know that it's going to be the right width all the way down. So our piece that's going to go over here is going to measure 10 1/4 by 7 1/4. And again, it's going to be scored at 1/2 inch and then 1 1/4. So that gives us a 1/2 inch attachment piece and then a 3/4 inch gusset. So again, we can go ahead and just remove a little bit of the backing of our tape, and you can lay it in like this. You can pinch it in like this so you can really see that you're lining it up top to bottom, and we're going to line it up to the bottom. We're not going to try to center it or anything like that. You're going to line it up to the bottom of this here piece of the piece that's covering our spine. And a good thing to also do is to go ahead and lay this piece down here, your other page, and you can line it up with that as well, because you want them to be straight to each other when everything is folded down. Alright, so that looks pretty good there. So we can go ahead and remove the backing of our tape and put that piece down. So now we've got our first 2 pages on. And how this is going to work is these pages are always going to fold in first, and then this page will fold in on top of it. And once they're all filled up, there will be room for everything in there. So now let's go back here to this side, and we're going to do the page that measures 10 1/4 by 6 3/4. So it's 10 1/4 this way and 6 3/4 tall. And we're again going to score at 1/2 inch and 1 1/4. So this time we're going to butt this piece up right against the back of this piece here, and it's going to line up again with the bottom of our book. We're always going to be lining them up with the bottom. So we can just remove a little bit again, like so, and then lay down our piece and just make sure that it's butted up right against the other piece there. And then we'll place it down. So you can go ahead and remove the backing. Shift it a little bit there, that's okay. All right, perfect. Alright, and now we can go back over here to this side. And now we don't actually have to measure anything on this side because it's just going to butt up against this piece again now. So this page here is going to measure 10 1/4 by 6 1/4. So 10 1/4 by 6 1/4 tall. And we're again going to score at 1/2 inch and then at 1 1/4 of an inch. And we'll just bend this back again, and then we can open these pages here so we can flatten this one out. And we will just butt it right up against that. Make sure it's nice and straight. And then we can just press it down. So make sure it's butted up all the way against the other one. And then we can press it down. All right. Now we will move back over here to this side, and we're going to attach the piece that measures 10 1/4 by 5 3/4. So 10 1/4 by 5 3/4. And again, we scored at 1/2 inch and 1 1/4. So we remove our backing again and just lay it in and attach it to the bottom and in line with our other piece there. Just like so. Alright. And now we will attach the last piece on this side here. And this one measures 10 1/4 by 5 1/4 tall. And we're going to score it 1/2 inch and at 1 1/4. So we can lay these down so that we can really butt this up nicely here. This is part of the reason I like to add my pages in before I decorate them, because it's very important to me that my pages are lined up to each other really nicely, and I just find that a lot easier when they're flat, when I'm not worried about this bulging that way and everything else. Alright, so we are ready to attach our final page over here on this side. So this page measures 10 1/4 by 4 3/4 tall, and again we scored at 1/2 inch and 1 1/4. Let's remove the backing and then just butt it right up against that other one there and press it down. Alright, so now it's going to go like this. So the first large piece, the largest page, is going to fold in first. And then the second largest page from the other side will. And then this side will fold in. And then this side. And then this side. And then this side. And then the smallest side will fold in from this side. And then they will all come together in the middle, like so. And there will still be room for everything to come together and work together the way that it should.